Hi guys, so today I'm going to be reading my NYU Gallatin essay. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jason, my pronouns are he, they, and I'm going to be studying at NYU Gallatin this fall for my master's. So NYU Gallatin, for those of you who don't know, is the individualized school. It's where you pick classes across schools, and it's where you construct your own curriculum. So my concentration is called Decolonizing Queer and Trans Identity through Writing and Film. So let's get into that essay. So I'm wearing pajamas because I feel like a lot of you are probably up late at night writing your college essays or your grad school essays, and I just wanted to be in that cozy vibe, but yeah, that's why I'm wearing pajamas. Okay. Growing up as a young, gay, transmasculine Jewish person, I've always been committed to social justice. In the Jewish culture, there's a concept called tikkun olam, which means world repair, a concept that has become ingrained in my everyday life. During my time at Sarah Lawrence College, I quickly learned the word decolonization, which became an important part of my studies because without it, there cannot be true tikkun olam. In order to properly pursue my undergraduate interdisciplinary study focused on queer and trans studies and filmmaking, I was committed to decolonizing the ways I think, especially about queerness and transness, moving away from bioessentialist and biomedicalism that obsesses over our bodies and our medical transitions. It is crucial for us to decolonize and dismantle white supremacist ideologies we have internalized, such as capitalism, queerphobia, and transphobia, and cultivate a more loving, equitable world, one in which queer and trans people will not only be safe, but thrive. Our transness is to be celebrated instead of ridiculed or something to mourn. The films I create cultivate worlds where queer and trans people are full, complex, crafted characters. This is what I hope to achieve by documenting, exploring, and telling stories of queer and trans identity, experiences, and communities. I employ communities over community because there is no singular experience or group of people, there are many. To me, it is not only important to document the past, but also the present. At NYU Gallatin, I aim to study queerness and transness, past and present, through a decolonial lens in tandem with pursuing fieldwork, writing, documenting, and interviewing, and filmmaking. My fieldwork will inform the films I continue to make, stories about queer and trans people, and how T for T, trans for trans, relationships, love, and heartbreak are experienced. Throughout my teenage years, when my friends had movies like 13 Going on 30, I desperately searched the internet for gay films, and they always had the same trajectory. Boy falls in love with boy, they have sex, one or both of them die. I make captivating, multifaceted films in which I aim to capture transmasculine people falling in love and the magic of a T for T relationship. My films do not just cast white, queer, and trans people, but cast BIPOC as well, and portray worlds where trans people are full, dynamic people who both struggle and experience joy. I am particularly interested in Indigenous, Black, Jewish, feminist, and LGBTQ studies, which are all necessary in order for me to make dynamic queer and trans films. There is not one universal experience, but many multifaceted stories. I aim to explore how these communities thought about queerness and transness prior to colonization, and if and how their views have shifted. I lack the knowledge of how Black and Indigenous communities thought about queer and transness prior to colonization. I would also like to acquire knowledge on how these communities view queer and transness today in a post-colonial world by pursuing fieldwork to form the basis of a book project that captures transmasculinity in New York City through a decolonial lens. The questions that drive my work are, how do Indigenous, Black, and Jewish communities view queer and transness before and after colonization? How do the queer and trans members of these communities connect with those who hold the same identities as them and form a community? What spaces do queer and trans people exist in today and in the past? How do they love each other, romantically and platonically? How do they feel about their queer and transness? How does a queer LGBTQ space differ from a T for T space? What are they writing, making, doing? What does T for T love look like? Are these relationships inherently safer? I chose Gallatin over a traditional graduate program for the same reason I chose Sarah Lawrence, for the interdisciplinary curriculum. I am not interested in one discipline, but rather multiple that are connected by my drive and passion for documenting queer and trans identity, experiences, and communities through writing and filmmaking through a decolonial lens. It has always been my goal to make dynamic, artistic, intellectually driven films and to write a book that showcases the complexities of queer and trans lives rather than solely focusing on pain and medical transition. While I could have pursued a filmmaking or an LGBTQ studies program, I seek the academic rigor and support of the Gallatin faculty while concurrently studying and documenting queer and trans life, writing, and producing my films. I've always progressed in small, tight-knit communities with the academic freedom of creating my own curriculum, which is evident through my academic career at SLC. Learning across disciplines and synthesizing my education is a fruitful experience and one that is necessary for doing the academic and creative work I intend to do. I'm qualified to study across these disciplines because my undergraduate education was interdisciplinary, rigorous, and had a conference system that is similar to NYU's tutorial system. I completed conference projects, independent papers, and creative projects supervised by a professor in addition to coursework. I was self-motivated and disciplined as I constructed my curriculum. For queer and trans studies, I wrote my conference paper on how Adrienne Rich's poems discussed her Jewishness and lesbianism separately, never together. I also wrote one about transmasculinity from the colonial period to the turn of the 21st century, where I found that transmasculine people tended to be accepted by and blend in with their communities. For the class Decolonizing Travel Writing, I explored my relationship to my new home, Brooklyn, through weekly journal entries and my conference projects. While simultaneously working on my conference projects, a memoir, and a narrative photo project, I explored my gender transition, my gayness as a boy, my trauma growing up through a divorce, and the growing pains of turning 21 alone in a big city. My film At the Museum, which I wrote, edited, and directed, explores the T4T relationship and the conundrum of being in love and having different romantic needs while discussing decolonization of the characters' artistic practices. The film was shot in a Brooklyn photo studio, which I designed to look like a small exhibit that takes place in the Brooklyn Museum, and later shot at my apartment. I directed a small team using lighting kits, a Blackmagic pocket camera, and a boom mic, and co-edited this using Final Cut Pro X. I have experience writing about and interviewing a diverse group of people. For my Art of Profile class, I wrote a profile on a transmasculine musician and his record label. Most recently, I have been working on a collection of profiles on autistic employees from Love Michael, a nonprofit employing autistic individuals, which will be compiled into a book. So that was the end of today's video. If you want me to look over your essay, I can. My Instagram will be linked down below. Again, I only know the MA Gallatin system. I don't know the undergrad one very well, and I don't know the other schools of NYU. I just know Gallatin. But I wanted to read my essay just in case anyone was curious. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video, guys. Love you. Bye.